شَيْئًا لَمْ يَفْعَلْهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم? Are you doing something which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never did? So yes, there is care inside it, but they did it. They joined the Qur'an and brought it together in one manuscript. An act which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never did. And I want you to bring me an evidence regarding the hadith we mentioned, كُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ, to take out from it anything which is not from the innovations within the ibadah. An evidence. Because the hadith is am, isn't it? Kullu, the word is am. Bring me an evidence to take out anything which is not ibadah from it.
Please forgive me, it's actually a comment. Patiently listen to the brother. And brother, you've answered a lot of the questions yourself. You stated that, as the speaker said, you stated that, that as far as Tarawih is concerned, it's an act of ibadah and it's proven. And the Shaykh has, you answered your own question. The Shaykh has said, the speaker said that sending through salat on the Prophet on him is actually proven as well. So, and you've also accepted that from the Sunnah that is proven, that the speaker said that Milad is proven. Where does it say in the Sunnah that you can't? It doesn't restrict it to any day. You've answered a lot. I've been listening patiently to you. Personally, I'm getting quite bored because you've sort of answered your own questions a lot of the way if you listen to yourself carefully.
Jazakallah for the comment. Again, the session today is not about Milad Sharif in itself, and inshallah maybe one day we can discuss the Milad Sharif of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In a nutshell, if it's okay to write about the Milad Sharif, then why isn't it okay to speak about it? Simple, and this is the simple logic. Everyone writes about the Milad of the Prophet ﷺ. You will never find a book in which there's no chapter on the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. Whoever it is, wherever he is. How could you be a Muslim and write on the Seerah but yet not mention the birth of the Prophet ﷺ? And how complete is that book if you don't start from the birth of the Prophet ﷺ? And yet, when we speak about it, they have an issue. Okay, so there's confusion. Inshallah, Allah guide them. We have a concept, we have a question here. The concept of bid'ah was discussed, but could you define what is bid'ah hasana? Because surely anyone can do an action and say it is a good bid'ah. What are the conditions of Sharia puts? Or is it a general condition that it should not contradict the Sharia rulings?
This is why we mentioned regarding this. This is not for the layman. This is not for the layman to decide like me and you. We cannot decide what is a bid'ah hasana. We do not have the qualification, the understanding. That is why your religion is not taken from the awam. It's not taken from our minds. It's taken from the ulama. If there is an issue which is innovated, then the ulama will look into it. Like the issue of the Mawlid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ulama looked into it, decided, the muhaddithun, the fuqaha, and they agreed it was allowed. And I told the brother, and I mentioned names of the muhaddithun. Does he consider them mubtadi'ah? Because he considers the issue of the Mawlid of the Prophet ﷺ as being a bid'ah which is reprehensible, then he must make all of these people as well reprehensible innovators. And regarding this comment then, it is left to the ulama to decide. We have just been mentioned inside the Aqwaal of Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, that generally you must not go against the Qur'an, the Sunnah, the Ijma', the Qiyas. The details of that, the details of has something gone against the Qur'an, the Sunnah, Ijma' or the Qiyas and so forth. Sorry, it's Qur'an, Sunnah, Ijma' and the Athar rather, of the Qiyas. Has it gone against one of these things, then this is to the ulama, the mujtahidun. Regarding the brother saying that issue of in ibadah, what does he say about the hadith in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah rahmatullah alayhi, as authentically narrated, Sahih Isnad, narrated by Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani rahmatullah alayhi inside Fath al-Bari. He mentions from a chain of narration which is Sahih, leading to Mujahid, the student of Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that Sayyidina Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was asked regarding the praying of Salatul Duha in JAMAAH. The prayer of the mid-morning prayer, the Duha prayer in JAMAAH. He said, إِنَّهَا مُحْدَثَةٌ وَإِنَّهَا لَمِنْ أَحْسَنِ مَا أَحْدَثُوا. Verily it is an innovation, and verily it is from the best things that they have innovated. And similarly, he narrates Ibn Hajar rahmatullah alayhi, a second narration, which is from the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah, regarding, leading back to Al-A'raj. Al-A'raj, rahmatullah alayhi, says, I asked, سألت ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنه عن صلاة الضحى فقال بدعة, and he said بدعة, but he didn't stop there. He said بدعة والنعمة البدعة. Sayyidina Ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, the one who it is said he was the most following of the Sahaba generally in the Aqwaal of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They used to follow, you should follow everything the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. So once they saw him throwing water like this, he said, Ya Ibn Umar, what are you doing? Radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stand here and throw water like this. Yet he says regarding the praying of the duha in Jama'ah, that it is a bid'ah, it is muhdatha, but it is from the best of the innovated affairs, and the chain is sahih, and it is there, Ibn Hajar rahmatullah alayhi, inside the Fath al-Bari, Fath al-Bari. That's in ibadah.
There's another question here. Are you saying the word kullu is always specified? Is it never general? How do you know it's not general in the hadith then?
No, we don't say it. We never said that it's never general. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all things. You must have a mukhassis, you must have something to do takhsis with. You must have an evidence which specifies. And like we mentioned, the ulama have mentioned, it is not I saying this, the ulama have mentioned that كُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ has takhsis, meaning it's not general, like the outward wording of it, كُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. Every innovation is misguidance, but the ulama in the shuruhat, including Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, and Ibn Hajar rahmatullah alayhi, if somebody wants to know Sahih Muslim, what are the meanings of the hadith in Sahih Muslim, generally they go to Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, because he has written a commentary on it, and he's one of the A'immah of the Deen, one of the Huffaz. They want to know what is in the hadith of Bukhari. One of the commentaries, one of the major commentaries, is the commentary of Ibn Hajar rahmatullah alayhi, Fath al-Bari. They go to that. If you go to that, you will find this hadith is narrated as being the mukhassis, as a thing which specifies the hadith of kullu bid'atin dalalah. Which hadith? Man sanna fil islami sunnatan hasanatan falahu ajruha. The one we mentioned inside the slides.
Okay, another question that we have is, some people say that the hadith quoted at the end of your presentation is about someone reviving a sunnah. How do you answer that? I know you've answered that before. But
The hadith of man sanna fil islami sunnatan hasanatan cannot be. The ulama have discussed this because why? The wording is man sanna fil islami sunnatan hasanatan falahu ajruha. Whoever brought into the religion is a sunnah which is hasana. Let's take it. A'udhu billah, if we said it means sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do you mean when you go to the next line of the hadith where it says man sanna fil islami sunnatan sayyatan? We can never say any sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sayyah, bad. So it clearly here the word sunnah cannot mean the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Otherwise we get into a big problem with sunnatan sayyatan. There is no sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam which is bad. Rather here sunnah means a way, a method or a way, not sunnah, as in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ulama have mentioned this.
another question that we have is, the hadith about doing a good act and getting reward for it is about sadaqah, which is not a bid'ah. How can you use it for justifying bid'ah?
The hadith, again, I think they're asking regarding the hadith of man sanna fil islami sunnatan hasanatan. This is mentioned in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, and it is Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala anhu, and it is in the bab of zakah. Related about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam collecting the sadaqah from people, and then one man stood up and began to give the sadaqah. Then everyone followed him. And I think what they're trying to say that is restricted. They're restricting the hadith to that reality. We have to go to the usuliyun, the people of usul, the people of usul al-hadith and usul al-fiqh. The usuliyun have a consensus ijma' on the principle of one of the principles in interpretation is al-ibratu bi'umum al-lafdi la bi khusus al-sabab. That the ibra, or what we call al-ibra here in Arabic, in English it means the consideration. The consideration of an evidence is given to its general wording, umum al-lafd, la bi khusus al-sabab, not to the specifics of its occurrence. So for example, if we said the hadith, the first hadith inside Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated by Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. This hadith, indeed actions are according to intentions. When was it mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It is regarding one man whom some of the commentators, like Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, inside his commentary, and I believe also Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahmatullah alayhi from the Muhaddithun, in his commentary on the Arba'in, the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, says this is an individual who did a hijrah from Mecca to Medina to al-Munawwara, but his intention wasn't for the sake of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He wanted to marry a woman, take the hand of a woman in marriage, and he is given the name Muhajiru Qais. His name is not mentioned, but he's given the laqab Muhajiru Qais, the Muhajir who made hijrah for this woman. Now, if we restricted that hadith to that chapter, the chapter of hijrah, this would lead to what? It would lead us blocking many of the issues of the deen. It would mean that we basically, whenever we have an evidence, we can only use it within inside that chapter or that section. But how many of the fuqaha in their books have used that hadith in many actions and said that without the action, the act is not sahih. There is no sihha. That the sihha of the action is not there, it is not correct action without an intention. So whoever thinks like this, unfortunately, it leads to what? Leads to basically blocking many of the issues, many of the ahkam of the sharia. And the usuliyun have said, the people of usul, the ulama of this religion, those who discuss the principles of jurisprudence, say there has been a consensus. Al-ibratu bi'umum al-lafdi la bi khusus al-sabab. Similarly, this hadith, though it is mentioned inside the concept of somebody giving sadaqah, but it is not restricted by, because the wording is, this has been mentioned by Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi in the sharh of this hadith inside Sahih Muslim.
Another question, it's mentioned that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu refuted groups of people performing group dhikr in a masjid, saying it is a bid'ah. The companions did not believe in any good bid'ah.
That's been disproven already. We gave the example from Al-Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullah alayhi, that he narrates from the Musannaf, Sahih narration, that Sayyidina Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that regarding Salatul Duha inside the Jama'ah, إِنَّهَا مُحْدَثَةٌ وَإِنَّهَا لَمِنْ أَحْسَنِ مَا أَحْدَثُوا. And regarding the fact, he said that it's bid'ah, he said bid'atun وَنِعْمَةِ الْبِدْعَةُ, and what a good innovation. That has been mentioned already, mentioned regarding the second adhan that Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu brought in during his khilafah, and it was not there at the khilafah of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and it was not there at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor was it at the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, yet he introduced it. Regarding this narration, I believe they are referring to the narration of Ad-Darimi. In the Sunan of Ad-Darimi, there is a narration about Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and it mentions in the narration how he went with Sayyidina Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu ta'ala anhu to a masjid to find people making dhikr in circles. And then he rebuked them, severely rebuked him. However, the hadith is not sahih. The reason the hadith is not sahih is not because I said it. You find many people today say this hadith is da'if. It's not sahih. Hadith is not sahih because Sayyidina Yahya ibn Ma'in rahmatullah alayhi, one of the imams of hadith and one of the great criticizers of the hadith from the Salaf, he is the companion of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi, said regarding the narrator inside this narration that Amr ibn Salama al-Hamadaniyu, that he is da'if. The exact wording he said is hadithu laysa bi shay'in. His hadith is nothing. It's of no worth. Hadithuhu laysa bi shay'in. This has been narrated by Al-Imam al-Dhahabi rahmatullah alayhi, who is one of the great criticizers of hadith. Meaning, what does he mean criticize of hadith? He looks into the hadith and decides whether the narrator is weak or not, and so forth. And he has mentioned this narrator, Amr ibn Salama al-Hamadaniyu, mentioned that he is from the du'afa, the weak narrators, inside the book al-Du'afa wal-Matrukin, and it is also mentioned inside Mizan al-I'tidal by Imam al-Dhahabi, and it is also mentioned by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullah alayhi in Lisan al-Mizan, that this narrator is da'if. So the hadith itself is not an evidence for us, but we should also look at the fact that the dhikr in groups has already been proven. Mentioned the hadith of Sahih Muslim, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. There are numerous ahadith, and regarding this particular hadith as well, that is narrated by Ad-Darimi, Sayyidina al-Imam Jalaluddin al-Suyuti rahmatullahi in Hawi lil-Fatawi, in his book on Al-Hawi lil-Fatawi, in which he has many fatawa, he mentions regarding this narration that it is not authentic. And then he mentions that this is one narration we have, yet we have multiple narrations about the time of the Prophet ﷺ about group dhikr. Therefore, we cannot take this narration against them, particularly in fact that this narration is not authentic. And we've already mentioned regarding the other concepts, regarding how the Sahaba did bring about acts which were not at the time of the Prophet ﷺ.
Any questions?
Last question. It was a narration It was about Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anh, who went to the four corners of the Kaaba and touched the four Kaabas, and I think it was Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh who saw him, and he rebuked him heavily, and he said, why did you touch four of them? And he said, it was the Kaaba, I went to touch him for him. He said, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught you to touch two of the sides, so why did you do more than that? Is that sahih or what is that? Is that da'if?
We have mentioned, I've heard the narration, I do not know the sihh of the narration. However, there's nothing wrong with him rebuking him. We didn't say every bid'ah is hasana. I didn't say that, nor did the ulama. There are bid'ah which are dalalah. We must remember that. So if it is proven that is not correct, then fine. And it is mentioned, I'm sure most of you, when you do Hajj, you only touch two corners, don't you? Alhamdulillah, you only touch the corner, the Hajar al-Aswad, and you touch the Yamani corner, alhamdulillah, you know. So basically, we are not saying, remember, we are not saying here, and I want to make it clear, not every bid'ah is hasana. We never said that. Neither do we say every bid'ah is dalalah. We leave it to who? The A'immah. So if anything is narrated regarding the Sahaba, that they said a certain bid'ah is hasana, we take it. And if they say any bid'ah is dalalah, we take it. And if the A'immah say certain bid'ah is dalalah, we accept it. And if they say bid'ah is hasana, we accept it. We need to have here, we need to be people who follow the A'immah, not our own whims and desires and not our own minds.
Okay, mashallah. Anything else? Jazakumullah khair for everyone coming today. I hope that inshallah this was beneficial for people, especially clarifying this misconception of bid'ah, what it really is, and how you really see that the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah has taken its concepts from the Qur'an, from the Sunnah, and from the men of Hadith. It hasn't just come up or hasn't churned up any definitions and terms from its own stomachs. This is not something that we do, even though we are constantly accused of. Those things that we do, the principles of which are found in the Qur'an and Sunnah and the Sharia. And everything that goes against it, we will be the first people to rebuke such things. So inshallah, we will be doing many other courses like this on a monthly basis, inshallah, if not every 2 months or at least once every 3 months, where we tackle some of these misconceptions that are rife amongst our communities. There are only a few people. There are only a few people carrying these misconceptions, but they are louder than those that have the supportive evidence. Now we need to be able to understand what our belief structure is. How do we defend our aqidah, our belief structure? And inshallah ta'ala, through evidences, through seminars like that, we'll be able to prove that. There are some leaflets here, these blue ones, inshallah. Brother Ali, inshallah, will give these out. There's a website, www.bidah.co.uk. You'll be pleased to know we've got that. And we'll be putting on there this article, this PowerPoint presentation for people to go back to if you haven't made notes. We'll also be putting other concepts of dispute or those concepts of confusion. We'll be placing evidences of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah on that also, inshallah. So hopefully we want people to be Sunnis who are proud of their aqaid, who know their aqaid, who know that they haven't, it's not hearsay what we do. The actions that we do have root foundations, inshallah, and we will try and prove those in those seminars, inshallah. The time of Salatul Asr has entered, and inshallah, within the next 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be leading Salatul Asr here. Those brothers that have not prayed, most of you haven't prayed because we were here whilst the time entered. So inshallah, we'll pray collectively, if not, pray in the Sunni masajid which are close by, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We'll ask Rad to make final dua, inshallah, for all of us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad fil awwalina wa fil akhirin wa fil mala'il a'la ila yawmiddin. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب والأبصار ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم أمتنا على أهل السنة والجماعة وشوق لقائك ومحبة نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.